Awesome, I see it recording. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Our next session is Social Media Accessibility by Elisa Carrillo. That is myself. Hello, I am the Digital Content Accessibility Specialist at the California Community College Accessibility Center. So in this presentation, I will discuss why accessible social media content is essential and how to create accessible content for various disabilities and best practices to improve accessibility on social media platforms. So I'm going to stop sharing and switch over to my presentation. All right, everyone, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we're now ready to go. So hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the first workshop of the year. And then we have social media accessibility. So I have a lot of great content for you in store for you all today. We have a total of 29 slides. You can find the slide numbers at the bottom corner of the presentation. So this is slide 1. So before we begin, let me share a little bit information about myself. My name is Elisa Carrillo. I am a young adult female with brown skin. With brown skin, I'm wearing black glasses and a beige quarter long sleeve. My hair length is just past my shoulders. I have brown hair with ash brown highlights. I am the digital accessibility specialist at the California Community College Accessibility Center. I joined the Accessibility Center in September, so I may be a new face to some of you. I'm currently pursuing a master's degree in assistive technology and human services at California State University, Northridge, and I'll be graduating from the program this fall. I've been working in the field of accessibility since 2015. I first started off as a student assistant, developing and creating resources for digital accessibility. Flash forward some years later, here I am at the Accessibility Center. So enough about me, let's get this presentation started. So why should you make your social media accessible? So making your social media accessible helps you reach a larger audience. The purpose of social media is to share, connect, and network with others online. If your content is not accessible, you're excluding people with disabilities from consuming the content you share online. Additionally, not everyone consumes content the same. In turn, accessibility allows people to consume content in alternative ways. Some people may prefer to watch videos, others prefer to read text. So each social media platform appeals to different types of users and offering different modes and alternatives and methods to engage with your audience. Lastly, and most importantly, accessibility is the right thing to do. Just plain and simple. Everyone deserves equal access. So social media, emphasis on the media. So what are different types of media content that are available online? On Instagram, we have images and videos. On Twitter, you tweet and you can write a post. You can use images and also share videos. Facebook, you post on your feed where you share images, videos, and texts. On YouTube, it's primarily video and audio formats. TikTok is a fairly new social media platform where you can share videos. LinkedIn is a social networking platform for professionals. So you'll most likely come across text posts, images, and videos. Twitch is a live stream platform where you can broadcast video in real time. And then we have Reddit, which is a forum social media platform. There are different Reddit groups and that can vary by topic and communities. You can post text, images, and videos. Compared to other social media platforms, Reddit has more advanced text formatting capabilities. So you can add hyperlinks, headings, you can bold or italicize your text, or even add a table. So that's just a brief overview of the different types of content that you can create on social media. So now let's break down accessibility by content type. Images. So images are one of the many ways you can share content online. Images can provide visual interest to captivate an audience. And as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So different types of images on social media are photos. That includes selfies, family photos, pictures of your pet, or even a picture of your lunch. So regardless of the type of photo you upload on your social media account, it requires alternative text. I will be going over alternative text in the next slide. And then after that, we have images with text. So another form of images are images with text, such as infographics or flyers. Screenshots are another example of images with text, where they capture an image on your device's screen. Some screenshots may include text. Other examples are text photos with captions, like a quote or a meme. Let me see. Other types of images can be icons and graphics. So some examples are logos or illustrations created for post, art. We also have memes. So what is social media without a good meme? It is a great way to stay up to date with pop culture or share humor while still getting your message across. So for example, on the right of this presentation, we have Canadian rapper Drake and his music video Hotline Bling. So the top portion of this image shows Drake shaking his head with his hand signaling no, with the caption, "Images without alt text," insinuating Drake does not like images without alt text, right? And then in the bottom portion of this image shows Drake's with the grin, nodding his head with his finger signaling yes, with the caption, "Images with alt text." So the humor in this photo is saying Drake is saying no to images with alt text, and he is disproving inaccessible images. And the bottom shows him approving and liking images with alt text. So based off this meme, one can assume Drake is an accessibility ally. Next, image accessibility. So how do I make my images on social media accessible? That's a great question. So as mentioned on the previous slide, images require a text alternative to make them accessible to those who cannot consume images as they are. Screen readers rely on alternative text to help blind or low vision users perceive images. So alternative text should describe the image. Depending on the purpose of the image might describe the elements, people, or objects. Alternative text should also transcribe text in the image. So images like infographics, memes with text, or flyers, any text in the image should be included in the alternative text. Alternative text should also include important visual cues. So in the example of the Drake meme from the previous slide, facial reaction and body language were important to understand the context of the image. Additionally, explain the humor in the image. So if the image is used for comedic or ironic purposes, explain the humor and what visual elements attribute to it. For alternative texts often have character limits between 100 to 120 characters. So for complex images such as infographics that may contain multiple icons, charts, data, or text, describing all the information might be a challenge within the character limits. So a workaround can be providing an image description in the caption of the post, or linking to an accessible text-based version, that be at your website, a blog, or an article. Accessibility limitations. So we just went over images and image accessibility. Now let's talk about accessibility limitations for images. One example would be stories. Stories are a relatively new feature on social media platforms. Stories are short posts that typically contain text, photos, or videos that disappear after 24 hours. So some platforms that incorporate stories are Instagram stories, Facebook stories, Twitter fleets, and LinkedIn stories. So currently, stories are not supported by screen readers. When you add images to stories, use GIFs, or any of the sticker icons, you're not given the option to add alternative text. meaning screen readers cannot interpret the images, stickers, or GIFs that are used. So an alternative can be linking to an accessible text-based version. So there can be best practices that can be helpful to make the stories more accessible to people with visual limitations. However, stories will not be entirely accessible since they're not screen reader accessible. So the image on the right of this presentation shows an example of an Instagram story. The story is promoting 5 tips for social media accessibility with a link to the article at the bottom. The link says social media accessibility article. Users can click on the article to access the text version that is supported by screen readers. Additionally, if I was this person, I would make this article available on social media platforms that is accessible to screen reader users. So for example, I might want to share this article on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, offering it on a platform where it is accessible. Additionally, if you're going to be using stories, use large font size for stories. So large font makes it easier. It makes it easier to read for people with low vision that may use screen readers. And also large font helps increase readability. We also have high contrast. So use high color contrast in stories by using strong contrasting colors or by adding color blocking to the text, such as a background color. Text. So now let's focus on more text-based social media content. So this may include blogs, tweets, posts, articles, forums, Q&As, chat room servers, or instant messaging. All of these are part of text-based social media content. So how do I make my text accessible? Less is more. So too much text can be overwhelming for social media users. Depending on the social media platform, content is meant to be short, bite-sized snippets. So keep it short and summarize your main points. For longer text, consider platforms such as forums, blogs, or discussion boards. Use camel case when using hashtags. So camel case is just a fancy word for capitalizing the first letter of each word. It provides better readability. So in the second list item, there's an example of a hashtag with camel case that says disability awareness. The D in disability is capitalized and the A in awareness is also capitalized. If the two words were both in lowercase, it might take longer or be more difficult to decipher. So it just provides better readability overall. Provide descriptive links. So descriptive links are hyperlinks that describe the purpose or destination of the link. Screen readers rely on descriptive link to understand where the link will direct them to. In the example for this list item, we have CCC Accessibility Center as the link text. It's descriptive, it lets the user know where the link is directing them to, and it makes sense out of context. Now, if we compare that link to the link title, click here, it doesn't make sense. Click here is vague, it's broad, it does not let the user know where the link is directing them towards. One important thing to note is descriptive link text is only available on some text-based social media platforms, such as Reddit or LinkedIn. On Instagram, unfortunately, you're unable to provide descriptive links within the caption of your post. So if the platform you're using doesn't have the ability to use descriptive links, such as Twitter or Instagram, direct the user to your website for an accessible text-based version. And then use emojis. So emojis have a text description and are accessible to screen readers. This emoji will read as slight smiley face, whereas the emoticon on the end will read as equals clothing parentheses, which might not make sense to a non-sighted user. So a sighted user might be able to see that the emoticon is a smiley face, but when a screen reader reads that back, it'll read equals closing parentheses. So it may not make sense to someone who is non-sighted. Next up, we have videos. So what types of videos are there in social media? The majority of the videos that we mainly come across on social media are user-generated videos. So that could be a cooking video, a vlog, which is a video version of a vlog, or just a talking head video. You can also find tutorials or how-tos, live videos, streaming, videos that are broadcasted live, news from video journalism, or promotional videos or advertisements. So, how to make your videos accessible. Videos with audio require a text alternative that can be through captions or video transcripts. Many social media platforms use captions, but some platforms that are more video-based, such as YouTube, offer transcripts in addition to captions. An important thing to note about videos, and I always stress this, and I'll be stressing this throughout the entire presentation, is that auto-generated captions are not sufficient. Auto captions may contain errors. So although artificial intelligence, also known as AI, is improving the accuracy of captions, it will never be 100% accessible. Therefore, it is critical to manually review captions and edit them for accuracy. So in the next slide, I'll be going over the two kinds of captioning methods, open and closed captions, and the difference between the two. Okay, so open captions. Open captions are always visible and cannot be turned off. The visibility of captions makes them accessible to everyone. So people don't need to figure out how to turn the captions on or where to find the caption button. This can be beneficial for people who may have difficulty with technology. Open captions can also be beneficial on platforms that don't offer the ability to edit or upload captions. However, a downside to open captions is that it might be distracting for some viewers to have it on screen. Some people prefer to have their captions turned off. Open captions can also be a creative way to caption social media content. So video creators can customize the font, color, or background of the captions to make the video more visually appealing for or provide easier readability. So on the image of the right, we have a video with the captions, 5 reasons you should use PowerPoint. The captions have a purple background on white text, which makes the captions pop and visually appealing. It provides visual interest and easier to read. So in addition, open captions require video editing software or applications to create captions, most which are paid or subscription based. So with the video editing software also comes video or graphic design experience, just keeping that in mind when deciding to go with open captions. Additionally, the video quality affects the quality of the captions. So since open captions are burned, quote unquote, or directly edited on the video, if the video itself is pixelated or blurry, the captions would also be pixelated or blurry. Open captions are also difficult or require more work to fix captioning errors. So let's say in this example, we created this beautiful video with open captions, and then like the image on the right, and then you notice that you have a typo. You forgot to correct one word in the auto captions. So in order to fix that captioning error, you would have to go back to the video editing software, edit the captions, download the video, and re-upload them on, let's say, Instagram or TikTok. So that's just one of the downsides of open captions. So when using open captions, always double check or even triple check the accuracy of captions before posting them online to avoid any setbacks. So closed captions. Closed captions are more flexible. The user is given the option to turn them off or on manually. If the user requires captions, they can go to the platform settings and enable them. And if the user doesn't want captions, they don't even have to view them. Closed captions will be edited directly on the social media application. Each social media app has different methods for editing captions. So for example, on Instagram stories. If you're using a video, it can be captioned using the captioning sticker, which is essentially an on-screen filter showing captions. These captions can be edited using the tap to edit button and to fix any captioning mistakes. However, platforms such as Twitter require SRT or subrip subtitle files to upload captions on Twitter, which can be kind of subrip subtitle files are caption files that include captions and the timestamps for the captions. So subtitle rip SRT files can be a little bit difficult if you don't have experience captioning. It can be difficult to edit if you don't have experience with captioning. So those are just two considerations. I'm sorry. Is someone? Okay, sorry. I think someone is controlling. Okay, sorry about that. It looks like we have slide control privileges. Okay, my apologies, everyone. So on platforms such as Twitter, you have the option to upload SRT files, whereas some platforms are a little bit more straightforward and have tap to edit buttons. So just considering that when uploading your videos online. Additionally, closed captions are easier to correct captioning errors. So as previously mentioned, you can edit your captions using the tap to edit button or the settings on the platform. So the image on the right is an example of closed captions. So as you can see on the image, the closed captions are smaller. They're in the corner of the screen. It has a dark gray background on white font. The font is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more discreet and not as visually distracting as the previous open caption video. So this is done to avoid taking any major attention from the video itself. So that image is an example of closed captions. Live streaming or live events. So live streaming requires captions in real time. Events such as webinars, presentations, Twitch, or YouTube video streams require live captioning. Unlike pre-recorded videos, whose captions can be edited in post-production, live videos require human professional captures for accurate captions. So in today's event, we're using human professional captioners to provide captions real time. The accuracy and timeliness of captions for live events are crucial. So you don't want your captions to have errors or to be delayed. You want to ensure your message is communicated in real time. So this may be difficult to caption live videos. So you most likely might want to outsource to a third-party service that offers the professional human live captioners. Again, automatic captions are not sufficient. Captions must be accurate for them to be accessible. Limitations. Some social media platforms that have live video don't offer live captions. So if you go on Instagram Live or TikTok Live, they don't have the ability to enable live captions. On the other hand, Facebook Live offers the ability to enable live captioning. So keep in mind the different types of social media platforms that have captioning ability for live events. All right, audio. Social media platforms are introducing audio chat rooms or features for live audio conversations. So this is fairly new. I barely came across this only a few months ago. So some examples are Twitter Spaces, which launched in 2021, Facebook Live audio rooms, or voice channels. So the image on the right of the slide shows an example of Twitter Spaces. There are multiple people in the Twitter space. The image shows captions and then the names of the speakers in the audio room. So we have speaker Bree, who says, "I know, right?" And then we have Paulo and Krishan. So this is just an example of an audio room. So these live audio conversations require live captioning. Once again, auto-generated captions are not sufficient. So the limitations with these audio-only spaces or features on social media platforms is that they only offer auto-generated captions for the time being. And as mentioned, auto-generated captions are not sufficient since there's always room for captioning error. So when using these features, please proceed with cautions since they are not fully accessible yet. My video has no audio, so how do I make it accessible? So videos with no audio convey information through visuals that can be through text on screen, images or video, anything but audio. So people who might be blind, have low vision, or cannot see the video or unable to interpret or access information on screen. Visual-only videos rely on the audience to understand or perceive the information through sight. Therefore, avoid using videos with no audio that can rely heavily on visuals. To make visual-only audios accessible, you can provide a narration or audio description track of the information on screen. So I'm going to play a quick video from Now This News. Now This is a news organization that contains Now This News is a news organization that often posts small clips of news or tidbits of information online. So let me play the video. I'm going to switch screens for a quick second. Okay. All right, so I'm going to play the quick video. This is, again, this is an example of a video with no audio that relies heavily on visuals. So I want you to observe and think, how would you interpret this video if you're unable to read the captions on screen? So I'm going to play this video. Okay, that should be enough. So I'm going to switch back over to my presentation. So in that example, the video title was Winter Storm Leads to Thousands of Flight Cancellations and Airport Chaos. So that gives us a hint of what the video is about. So in the video, what we saw was text on screen. There was no narration, but it didn't include audio with subtle music in the background. Important information was conveyed through visuals, such as the opening text, which said thousands of flights were canceled, leading to chaos in many North American airports. Additional text showing the locations of the video clips, such as Newark, New Jersey, and San Diego, California. This is important information that helps with the user's understanding of the video. So the locations show that from New Jersey all the way to California, different coasts, many people experience flight cancellations. Other visual elements such as long wait lines, huge crowds, and piles of luggage spread throughout the airport showed how severe these airport delays were. So this video relied on visuals, making them inaccessible to people who cannot interpret or access the videos. So this was an example of an inaccessible video. So how do I make my videos with no audio accessible? Well, some social media platforms are introducing text-to-speech and voice effects that narrate the captions in the video. Examples of these features are available on Instagram Reels or TikTok. This can be a great alternative to make your videos with no audio accessible. The captions on screen can be narrated by different voices. So you can select a female or a male voice, a higher pitch or a deeper pitch, or even a cartoon-esque voice. I know I recently came across a video that contained text-to-speech captions that sounded like the spokesperson from the Kohl's commercial. I'm sure some of you may have come across that. I thought that was a little bit funny. And then text-to-speech videos can also be used for people who don't enjoy the sound of their voice. So take me, for example. I avoid recording my voice whenever possible because I just don't like the way my voice sounds like. I might sometimes stutter my speech, so I can use the text-to-speech captioning to convey my information without having to use my own voice. So long gone are the days of the monotone Siri or a computer-generated voice. You can now narrate your voice and make them fun and creative. So I'm going to play a video that contains text-to-speech captions. So let me play it.
Why you should make your social media accessible. Accessibility helps reach a larger audience, allows people to consume content in alternative ways. Accessibility is the right thing to do.
All right, so that was just a little homemade video I made.
Why you should make your.
Oops, I apologize for that. So that was just a little homemade video I made for demonstration purposes. So the videos had captions on screen with a text-to-speech audio. The video had both audio and captions to make them accessible to someone who may be unable to hear the audio or visually see the content on screen. Additionally, text-to-speech captions can also be a method for a person who is nonverbal to communicate through voice. So a person who is nonverbal can create videos and communicate through audio and do them accessibly with the text-to-speech feature. As mentioned, depending on the software you're using, you have the options to choose from different voices, to show different personalities, or to convey a certain tone, right? So I know I've seen voices that kind of have a more deeper, somber voice. I've seen one that are a little bit more upbeat, so you might use that for a more high energy video. So there's different voices and different narrators that can convey different tones. Additionally, people may prefer to listen to the voice rather than reading captions on screen. So providing those two options for the readers or the listeners. So color and color contrast. Color should not be the only means to convey information. Some people cannot perceive color, therefore, in addition to color, use formatting such as bold or italics, or symbols and patterns to emphasize and highlight information. Ensure that there is sufficient contrast between background and foreground colors. So avoid green or red or blue-yellow combinations, since they are difficult contrasting colors to read. Adding solid backgrounds or opaque overlays between your text and background color helps improve readability. When you're creating all these fun, beautiful, and eye-catching infographics for your social media, you can also use the Color Contrast Analyzer tool. The tool developed by TPGI is a free tool that checks colors for accessibility. So you might want to use this color throughout your graphic design process. The image on the right we have is an infographic. So the background is a strong yellow color, almost a sticky note color. The text is black. It contrasts well with the background, kind of making the text pop and more readable. And then the heading of this infographic is, did you know 1 billion people live with some form of disability? World Health Organization 2020. So that's an example of an infographic with strong color contrast. So other accessibility considerations. Email accessibility. So although email accessibility is not social media, both email and social media are relating to marketing communication. You're sending a message and communicating with your audience. So email is sending your message through emails, newsletters, or listservs. Social media, you're sending your message through online platforms that can be Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So in both cases, let's say you're sending an image. You can post the image on Facebook or send an image through email. The same accessibility principles apply to the content. So that image would always require alternative text. If you're uploading a video on Instagram or on YouTube or sharing a link on YouTube through email, those videos still require accurate captioning. If you're designing a beautiful post for Instagram, ensure that the text has adequate font size and font color, and ensure that the color contrast is accessible. So just keeping in mind that email accessibility and social media accessibility share a lot of the same content. Additionally, files attached to emails also need to be accessible. Remember, the same accessibility principles can be applied. So it can be an image on social media, an image used in an email, or an image used in a Word document or PowerPoint. All these images still require alternative text for them to be accessible. So, concluding thoughts, no matter the social media platform or medium you're using, the same accessibility principles apply. In the next 2 to 5 years, we might have a new social media platform that can be used for sharing videos, right? So those videos would still require accurate captioning. So that's an important thing to note, that as technology evolves, the same accessibility principles apply, unless there is a new technology that's invented. Additionally, always stay informed of accessibility updates from social media platforms. So although some features may be inaccessible now, feature updates can be made to make them accessible later. So with that said, be aware of accessibility limitations and find accessible workarounds, or avoid using features that have no accessibility features. So in this example would be Twitter Spaces, right? So I would recommend avoiding Twitter Spaces since they only have auto-generated captions available at this time. Social media content is meant to be fun and interactive. So don't make your content boring. I know I often hear that accessibility is plain text or has to be this black and white dull version, which is not the case. So accessibility does not mean ugly. So have fun creating your social media content. So make those memes, film those TikTok videos, and always make your content accessible. So I have 3 slides of resources. So this slide has resources for Instagram and Facebook, Twitter and TikTok, and other resources. So this one has Twitch, Discord, Hootsuite Inclusive Design for Social Media. That one is a great article. And then the Color Contrast Analyzer tool. As previously mentioned, everyone will receive a copy of this presentation. You'll receive an email once the presentation is available. And then another resource is the California Community College of Accessibility Allies. Our next meeting is February 15th at 10:30 through 11:30 a.m. So in this Community of Accessibility Allies, it can be an additional resource right? So everyone throughout the California Community College, everyone throughout the California Community College can join, and we'll have breakout rooms for procurement, digital content, web, DSPS, alt media, and I believe that's it. So you can join these groups, and we'll have live, meaningful discussion, exchange ideas, share best practices and challenges. In addition, we also have a listserv. So this will be another resource outside of Zoom. You can join our listserv. I'll be adding the links for both registration and listserv for you guys to join later. And then this is my contact information. Again, my name is Elisa Carrillo. I am the Digital Accessibility Specialist at the California Community College Accessibility Center. And my email is ecarrillo, that is CARRILLO, at ccctechcenter.org. All right, now I'll be open for questions. Let me check the chat. I see we have quite a few. And then if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or use the hand feature. If you prefer not to talk, you can also type the message in the chat. So one of the questions was, is the listserv the same for each group or different? So this listserv is the same one for each, for everything. So in the listserv, you'll be able to share resources for DSPS, procurement, digital content, and I believe it was also alt media. So if you join this listserv, it'll be an all-encompassing listserv. And then yes, I can put my email in the chat. And then I see, Elisa, can you go over the difference between opening and closed captions? Yes, I can. So let me go back to my presentation. Let me provide the full screen view. All right. So open captions make them accessible and visible to everyone. So in this example, we see 5 reasons you should use PowerPoint. So these captions cannot be turned off since they're directly edited in the video. And the difference between open caption and closed captions. Now, closed captions we have, these are auto-generated. The appearance can be adjusted depending on the platform. So in this example, it's closed captions from TikTok. You're unable to adjust the contrast of the background or the font size. I know on platforms such as YouTube, which is more video-based, they have more flexibility on the way you can change the closed captions appearance. So you can make your text larger, you can change the background, you can have a yellow background to make it more vibrant. So it just depends on the platform the video is on. So closed captions can be turned off or on, and they have to be edited within the platform itself. And sometimes you can use SRT files to upload. And then open captions, you would have to use video editing software to create these wonderful, colorful captions. So great question.
Elisa, I got another one. I think it was sent directly to me. It said, you mentioned Instagram stories. Did you already go over this that are not accessible to screen readers? What are some of the workarounds or alternatives?
Sure. I believe, no, excuse me, it was in the slide in the back. Yes. So as mentioned, Instagram stories are currently inaccessible to screen reader users. So some alternatives might be offering the content that you're posting on the Instagram story in a different platform. So you can either include that content in an Instagram post or by using Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook to get your message across. So just offering a multiple means of accessing the information. So in this example of the social media accessibility article, you can post this article link in your website. You can also tweet it or post it on your Facebook wall. So don't necessarily avoid stories, just offer a different platform or mode of sharing this content online. So another great question.
All right, we're seeing a few questions in the chat that are not related to social media. We will address those by putting the questions and responses into the Vision Resource Center. They're related to Zoom and some Canvas courses. So we want to note that we are noting them and that we will circle back with a response.
Awesome. Any other questions? If not, we can break early and then reconvene for our web accessibility session.